Hi everyone, Anthony Morganti here. I have a video series where I'm demonstrating my current Lightroom editing workflow. I have a number of videos in this series already. In one video, I demonstrate my current landscape editing workflow. In another, I demonstrate my current landscape travel workflow. And I have two different videos demonstrating my current wildlife editing workflow. In both of those videos, I use third-party apps to reduce the noise. In one, I use Topaz Labs Photo AI, and in the other, I use DxO's Pure Raw 4. I mentioned that there are times when I will not use a third-party app to reduce the noise and will instead use the noise reduction that is in Lightroom, denoise. In today's video, that is what I'm going to be demonstrating using this image. This type of image is typical of an image where I would not use a third-party app. It was shot at ISO 3200. There's noise, but it's not overwhelming, and it's an okay image. It's not something that's going to win any awards, but it's a nice image, and I'd like to share it online. Now, I'll have all of these videos that are in this series in a playlist, and I'll have that playlist linked in the description below this video. Now, I've mentioned several times that I like to reduce noise very early in my workflow first, if possible. So that's what I'm going to do right away. This is an unedited raw file. I'll even hit reset over here. So it's not edited at all. I'll jump right to the detail panel, and I want to use the AI noise reduction. So I'm not going to use the manual noise reduction at all. Of course, the AI noise reduction in Lightroom is limited to raw files, and it doesn't work on all raw files, but it works on most raw files. So if you have a JPEG or a TIFF or something like that, unfortunately, you will not be able to use denoise. You should then use one of the third-party apps instead. So let's use denoise. I'm just going to click on it, and when you do, you'll get this enhanced preview dialog box, and it gives you an idea of what it's doing. What I like to do is click on this little magnifier to zoom out, and then I'll zoom into an area that's important, that has no noise and is still sharp. In cases of wildlife, that's usually somewhere around the eye. So what I'll do is I'll just then zoom in and then drag the image around so I get a look at the eye and a look at the background where most of the noise is. You could see that there is still noise there. Now you'll notice that this denoise checkbox is automatically checked, and currently it has an amount of 27. This isn't smart, meaning it didn't examine the image and determine that it needs an amount set to 27. It's just your last setting. So you're going to have to do this every time. Whereas if you're familiar with like Photo AI, it has autopilot where it will examine the image and determine what type of denoise is needed and how much denoise is needed. Lightroom doesn't work that way. It's totally manual. So what I like to do is, there's still noise here, so obviously I have to move it up. So I'll move it to 50. I'll move it like right in the middle because it goes from 1 to 100. So 50 is roughly the middle, of course. So I'll move it around there and look at it, see what it looks like, and I'll drag around as well. And actually it looks decent. There's maybe just still a little bit of noise in there. So I'll bump it up. Usually what I'll do is I'll split the difference again. I'll go between 50 and 100. So obviously I'll put it around 75. In this case now, the noise is completely gone as expected because it was just barely there at 50. So now I'll split the difference again between 50 and 75. So I just kind of drill down and keep doing that. And that still looks pretty good. I'm just going to pull it down even more. Just drag around. And there's still a tiny bit at 57. 60, it almost looks good. Yeah, I think 60 is good. Just like that, the eye looks good. I'll just click Enhance. Now, what is happening is Lightroom's going to actually create a new DNG file, or a new RAW file. It's a DNG file. So it still is non-destructive. It's not going to touch your original RAW file. And if I go down to the film strip and turn it on here, you'll notice that after it's done, you can see the progress bar in the top left-hand corner. We're going to have this new DNG file. And it will put you on the DNG file. So we're on the DNG file now. Here's the original Nikon RAW file. So I'll zoom in. I'm going to go up here to View, and I'm going to lock the zoom position. So you could see that we have this image, the original Nikon RAW file has a lot of noise. And we'll go to the now noise reduced image, And you can see that Lightroom did a fine job. So there's before and there's after. So I'll zoom back out. I'll just click on the image again. I'm going to get rid of the film strip because I like to maximize the view of the actual image. So I'm going to hit the F6 key to get rid of that. And by the way, on my website, anthonymorganti.com, I have a PDF that you could download and print at home that has all the keyboard shortcuts for Lightroom Classic. I have similar free PDF downloads for Photoshop, On1 Photo Raw, Luminar Neo, Photo AI. Did I say? I don't know. I got so many, I can't remember. But anyway, I'll have that linked in the description below this video, and you could download all of those you need. All right, now that I've reduced noise, what I'm going to do is I'll slightly out of order, because typically I will do spot removal or remove like things I don't want in the image right before I do masking. But I want to do it now only because it's kind of bothering me. I kind of like that the nuthatch is on this tree, which is kind of framing the left-hand side of the image, and the nuthatch is looking off to the right-hand side of the image. But then we have these trees over here, these branches that are kind of framing the nuthatch nicely. But this branch right here is bothering me. It's just bugging me. It's kind of getting in my way. So I want to get rid of this. So I'm just going to do it right away. So I'm going to go to the remove tools, and I do want to use the actual generative AI remove. So I'm going to click that on. We'll click object aware on, although I'm not sure it's going to be able to find the object. I want to put the tool overlay on auto so that I could see it as I'm drawing it, and it's going to be there after I draw it. So I'm going to go up here. I could resize the brush here. Make sure opacity's at 100, or you'll have a ghost image of this branch. And you could use the bracket keys to resize the brush. Right bracket key makes it bigger, left bracket key smaller. And I'm then going to just outline this branch. Now you could try doing this with the remove tool without using generative AI. It probably would work as well, might not work as well, and you might have to do it a couple times. And that's good. But the bad thing about generative AI is you don't know what results you're going to get. It might put a new branch in here for all we know. So that's kind of weird. Now, after you draw it the first time, you'll get the mask refinement panel, and I want to add to it. You can see it missed the tip of the branch right here. And we're going to click apply. Now, those of you not familiar with this new remove tool that uses generative AI, it's actually sending the image up to Adobe, and Adobe's computers are doing the removal, and you can see that it did a very nice job. You have 3 versions of it or variations of it right here. You can click the right arrow key to see different variations, and they're all pretty much identical. So you could try any of these that you like. I think there's a little bit of a ghost image down in there of it, and it's a little more pronounced in the second one. You could see it a little more, and a little less with the third one, and a little less maybe with that first one. So that's good. I think that looks fine, and I'm done with the remove tool. And now I'm just going to do my editing in the order I typically would do editing. I mentioned several times that at this point, I would, if needed, change my camera profile. I don't need to do that at all for this. Then I would fix white balance. I don't need to do that. This white balance is fine. Then I'll do tone. So for this image, I'm just going to, as I mentioned with highlights, I look at the brightest part of the image, like right in here, and I'll just pull highlights down, and all of a sudden you'll just kind of see some detail kind of pop in, and then that's fine. Then I'll look at a darker part of the image, like in here, and I'll open up shadows until I see some detail come in there, and that looks pretty good. Then I'll get a white and black point, and the way I prefer to do it is by holding in the Option key on my Mac. It's Alt key on a PC. Click on the white slider, and then when I click on the white slider, the entire screen turns black. I'll move this to the right till I see some colors coming through. That means I'm starting to clip the highlights. Those color channels, specifically the blue color channel you can see is being clipped. Where white is, that means I'm clipping all 3 color channels. I don't like to blow out or clip the highlights, so I will then back this off until all that color dissipates. And for me, that's a perfect white points. Similarly for blacks, I'll hold in that Option key, click on the blacks slider. This time I'll get an entirely white screen. I'll pull this blacks down until I see some color coming through. That means I'm starting to crush the shadows in those areas. See where the colors are? Those are the specific color channels. You can see there's green there and blue there. Where black is, that means I'm crushing all three color channels. I don't mind crushing the shadows too much. I think it just gives my image a lot of tonal variance or tonal range. So I don't mind doing it. I don't do it quite as much on a wildlife image, though, as I might do it on a landscape image. That's just my habit. So far, so good. Now, after I do that, I do not do global texture clarity or dehaze. I prefer to use masking for that. I may move vibrance or saturation, but in this case, I don't. I mean, the bird is pretty much gray and white. There's not much color on the bird. And I don't want to make the background too colorful because then it will distract us from the bird. If you watch some of my other videos, you may have noticed that there were times where I actually sucked some of the color out of the background so that the subject would stand out more. So in this case, the background isn't overwhelmingly colorful to begin with. So I'm not going to make it more colorful by moving vibrance or saturation. Now, I'm done with tone. I'm not going to do anything with color. Typically, I don't need to do anything with tone curve, color mixer, color grading. I'll have videos in this series where I use some of these other panels. But right now, for this specific image, I'm done with the global adjustments. Now I'm going to go to masking. And I definitely want to mask the subject. I want to do specific editing for the bird. And you can see that it caught the bird. It missed its feet a little bit. But really, that's okay. I think it's fine. And specifically here, I mean, there isn't much color here at all, but I will tweak up the saturation a little bit. Then I'll go to Effects, and I want to add some texture. And a lot of times I'll zoom in. Now, when you have masking open, you don't have the magnifier cursor anymore, but you could temporarily get it by holding in the space bar. And then you'll get the magnifying cursor. Then you could come in and I'll add some texture, a little bit of clarity. Then I'll go to the Detail tab and I want to add some sharpening. Now I'll zoom back out by holding in that space bar again and tapping with the left mouse button. And you can see now it looks a lot sharper, so it looks pretty good. Pretty much at this point, I'm done with the main editing. I really don't think I need to do anything more with masking, so I'll close this. Now, what you could try, it's relatively new in Photoshop, you could try lens blur because this tree back here maybe isn't as blurred as I'd like it to be, but you kind of sometimes get mixed results with lens blur, but we'll try it. So I'm going to click Apply. And of course, it has to analyze the image and kind of create a depth map where it's trying to find the subject and it wants, of course, the subject to be in perfect focus. And then, you know, it's going to try to simulate a real lens blur in bokeh where going behind the lens, it gets progressively blurrier. And you can see it's taking quite a while to analyze this image. I don't think this does anything. I don't think it sends the image up to Adobe servers to do this. So it's doing it on your computer. So on some computers, it may take quite a while to do this. It's taken a long time on this one. So far it did it. Now, did it do anything? There's before and there's after, right? There's before and there's after. If anything, it adversely blurred like in here. But I don't know, let's not give it the hi-ho yet. Let's move this up to 100 and see what it does. You can see it's not really doing anything I like. So we're going to turn this off because this just doesn't look, nothing looks right. So I'm going to undo that. Get rid of lens blur totally. And I think I'll just have to live with it. Now, what I can do is I could try to go to masking again and I could create a new mask and I could do the background. And you can see it selected everything but the bird. And then what I could do is I could go to Effects and I could go to Clarity and I could kind of pull Clarity down this way and texture down a little bit. I kind of like that. I think that makes that look a little more realistic. Whereas before, let me undo that. See how it just, I don't know, it just kind of looks weird. Let me turn off the overlay. It just kind of looks weird back in there. So I'm going to pull that down. I think that looks a lot better. What I could try to do too is go to tone and see if it looks better maybe with the darker background. I think it might look better with the darker background. Then I'll go back to the original mask I put on here of the bird only, and I'm going to go exposure and I'll make the bird a little brighter. So I think that looks better. It's just making the bird stand out a little more. And then I'm going to finish it off by putting a dark vignette on the image like that. And there's my edit using only Lightroom, so I didn't use a third-party app to reduce the noise. There's before, and there is after. There's before, and there is after. Now, what I'll do, and I recommend that everyone do this, because as you're editing, your eyes sometimes get fatigued and your brain kind of gets numb to what you're doing. And there might be a glaring mistake here, like it might be over sharpened, or it might be the background is too dark, or the bird is too bright. And what I'll do before I would share this image online is I would walk away from my computer for a while, just focus on other things, play with the dog or something like that, and let my kind of brain reset, my eyes rest. Then I'll come back and look at it again, and things just jump out at you. What is wrong with it? And those of you watching this probably are thinking, wow, that's like the background's too dark or the bird's too sharp or whatever. And it's just because I'm sitting here with my nose 12 inches away from my monitor and my brain is numb. So definitely before, and I recommend this really for any image, not just a landscape or not just a wildlife image, is to step away from your computer for a while before you share it or print it or send it off to a lab to be printed. Just walk away for a while, then come back and refocus on it and see if it needs to be tweaked a little. And I think you'll find that often your image will need to be tweaked a little bit. So thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.